They say coffee is just a drink, but in Melbourne, it's a lifestyle, a love language, and a quiet rebellion. Every corner cafe tells a story, every cup brewed with the precision of an art form. This isn't just caffeine, it's culture, one that rivals the espresso bars of Rome and the Kissitten cafes of Tokyo. From the hiss of milk steamers to the rhythm of morning crowds, Melbourne has turned a daily habit into a national obsession. This is the story of how a city built its identity around one small, powerful cup of coffee. When the ships arrived in the late 1940s, they carried more than people. They carried culture, and inside that culture was coffee. Italian migrants stepped onto Melbourne's docks after World War II with suitcases full of memories and a passion for espresso. In a city still sipping tea and instant blends, their rich, aromatic brews felt like a revolution. Cafes began to spring up in Carlton and Brunswick, humble spaces where espresso machines gleamed like chrome engines of the future. These weren't just places to drink coffee. They were community hubs, alive with laughter, conversation, and the smell of roasted beans. For Italians, coffee was connection. For Australians, it was something new, a passport to a more flavorful life. By the 1950s and 60s, Melbourne's cafe culture had become an underground movement. Students, writers, and artists gathered in smoky rooms, sipping espresso as they debated art, politics, and philosophy. It wasn't about caffeine. It was about belonging, about finding warmth in a rapidly changing world. The cafe became a stage where the city's soul began to perform. And then came the machine, the FEMA E61, the symbol of modern espresso. It landed in Melbourne in the early 60s, transforming the way coffee was made forever. Suddenly, baristas became artists, and coffee became a craft. From that moment, the seed was planted. This wasn't just a European import anymore. Melbourne was making coffee its own, one cup, one conversation, one culture at a time. In the quiet hum of Melbourne's laneways, something extraordinary was brewing. It wasn't just the aroma of roasted beans or the hiss of espresso machines. It was identity. Coffee was no longer just a drink. It was becoming a rhythm of life. In the 1980s and 90s, while the world saw coffee as a morning necessity, Melbourne began crafting an experience. Small cafes with mismatched chairs, handwritten menus, and warm conversation became sanctuaries for thinkers, artists, and dreamers. Every cup told a story, not of caffeine, but of connection. The city embraced coffee like art. Cafes competed not in size, but in soul. Espresso wasn't fast, it was intentional. Melbourne's baristas began to slow the process down, treating every shot as a form of craftsmanship. A pour wasn't just measured in seconds, but in personality. The milk was textured to velvet, the crema golden and alive. This was no longer about staying awake. It was about feeling alive. Locals didn't grab coffee. They met for coffee. The act itself became a pause in the chaos of modern living. Soon, the culture spread beyond cafes and into identity itself. Young professionals started describing themselves by their brew of choice: long black, flat white, cold drip. Cafes became second homes, job offices, and creative studios. Artists painted in corners. Writers drafted novels between sips. Melbourne didn't just drink coffee, it lived it. Each cafe, tucked into its narrow laneway or industrial warehouse, became a reflection of the city's character: independent, expressive, endlessly curious. By the turn of the millennium, Melbourne had achieved what few cities ever could. It transformed consumption into culture. The ritual of coffee became a symbol of belonging, a badge of pride, a heartbeat of everyday life. And while other cities had cafes, Melbourne had community. Its streets pulsed with it. In every sip, a lifestyle was born. Every revolution begins quietly. In this case, with the sound of milk steaming and beans grinding before dawn. Melbourne's coffee artisans were no longer simply baristas. They were performers, scientists, and storytellers of flavor. By the early 2000s, the city had become a breeding ground for talent. People obsessed with precision, temperature, and texture. They spoke in notes of caramel and acidity, treated espresso machines like instruments, and turned latte art into an expressive language. A new profession was born: the specialty barista. Competition soon followed. Melbourne baristas began dominating the global stage, earning titles at World Barista Championships and turning cafe culture into performance art. These were not casual contests. They were symphonies of skill. Every pour was judged by aroma, balance, and emotion. The world began asking, what is Melbourne doing differently? The answer wasn't just in technique, it was in philosophy. Each cup was crafted with reverence, a belief that coffee wasn't just served, it was shared. This barista movement gave birth to a new kind of fame. Locals knew the names of their baristas like others knew their chefs or winemakers. They were personalities, innovators, even local celebrities. Cafes became stages, each coffee a small act of theater. Behind every perfect pour stood hours of practice, sleepless nights, and a passion for perfection. The result was a city that turned the ordinary into the extraordinary, one espresso at a time. By the mid-2010s, Melbourne wasn't just part of the coffee world, it led it. Visitors from Tokyo to Toronto came not for landmarks, but for lattes. International brands sent teams to study its methods. The city's humble cafes were now global icons of creativity and consistency. Through craft and care, Melbourne's baristas transformed a beverage into a benchmark. And in doing so, they gave the city something rare, not just a culture, but a global identity brewed from passion and pride. Beneath the surface of every great cup lies a hidden world of science. Melbourne's coffee scene didn't just evolve through art and passion, it thrived through precision. Baristas became researchers, chasing the perfect extraction with tools once found only in laboratories. They measured temperature to the decimal, tracked grind size with digital scales, and used refractometers to test consistency. Brewing became an exact science, and cafes began to resemble tech labs more than cozy corners. It wasn't just about taste anymore, it was about truth in every drop. But behind the shine of espresso machines and the hum of grinders, there was a deeper conversation brewing, one about sustainability. Melbourne's roasters began asking where their beans came from, who grew them, and what impact their craft had on the planet. Single-origin coffee wasn't just a marketing term, it became a moral compass. Every bean carried a story, of farmers in Ethiopia, cooperatives in Colombia, and harvesters in Papua New Guinea. Through transparency and traceability, coffee became a bridge connecting continents, ethics, and economies. Technology pushed the movement further. Precision roasting software allowed local producers to fine-tune flavor like a composer shaping sound. Cafes experimented with renewable energy setups, reusable packaging, and zero-waste operations. Sustainability wasn't a side note, it was the heart of innovation. The next wave of Melbourne coffee wasn't just brewed for taste, it was designed for the planet. This blend of science and conscience redefined what modern coffee could mean. And through it all, flavor remained the guiding star. The interplay of chemistry and craft created profiles so distinct that Melbourne's coffee became a sensory signature recognized around the world. Sweet, balanced, complex, like the city itself. In the quiet hum of a cafe, between the hiss of steam and the grind of beans, Melbourne wasn't just brewing coffee. It was crafting the future, one scientific sip at a time. In Melbourne, coffee isn't just a drink, it's a language. It speaks in the quiet hum of early mornings, in the clinking of ceramic cups, in the gentle murmur of conversation drifting through laneways. For many, the daily ritual of coffee is sacred, a pause before the rush, a bridge between solitude and connection. It's how the city breathes. From the first sip to the final drop, Melbourne's coffee culture captures something deeply human, a need to slow down, reflect, and belong. Across neighborhoods, cafes have become modern temples of community. They aren't just places to drink, but places to gather, to work, to think, and to dream. Students revise at corner tables. Artists sketch between sips. Entrepreneurs build companies over flat whites. The cafe is the heartbeat of Melbourne's social life, open to everyone, alive with stories. In a city often described as the world's most livable, it's these small spaces that give it soul. But this culture didn't happen by accident. It was built through countless shared moments. The barista who remembers your order, the regulars who greet each other by name, the feeling that for a few minutes, you're part of something larger. In Melbourne, coffee connects strangers. It dissolves class, age, and background. It's a ritual of equality, where a builder, a banker, and a poet can all share the same counter and the same brew. And beneath that simple ritual lies identity. Coffee reflects who Melbourne is: creative, open-minded, endlessly curious. It's woven into art, design, and conversation. The latte art competitions, the cafe murals, the handwritten menus, each one a testament to the city's soul. In Melbourne, to drink coffee is to live deliberately, to find beauty in the ordinary and connection in the everyday. Across the world, coffee has its icons: the espresso bars of Italy, the minimalist cafes of Japan, the bustling roasteries of the United States. Yet, quietly and confidently, Melbourne has stepped onto this global stage, not by imitation, but through innovation. Its coffee culture doesn't follow trends, it defines them. While others focus on efficiency or status, Melbourne obsesses over craft. Each cup here feels personal, a dialogue between farmer, roaster, and barista. It's a city that treats coffee as both science and soul. Travelers often arrive expecting something familiar: an espresso, a cappuccino, a taste of Europe. But Melbourne surprises them. The menus speak a new dialect: flat whites, magic, single origins, filter brews from beans grown in Ethiopia, Guatemala, or Papua New Guinea. Every sip tells a story that stretches across continents, yet lands perfectly in this Australian moment. For many, their first coffee in Melbourne becomes a revelation, a quiet realization that this city doesn't just drink coffee, it redefines it. The world has begun to notice. International baristas visit Melbourne to train, learn, and compete. Global brands seek inspiration from its cafe design, its ethical sourcing, its near-obsessive attention to flavor. Even Italy, the birthplace of espresso, now acknowledges Melbourne as a coffee capital in its own right. Meanwhile, Japan, known for precision and ritual, shares with Melbourne an unspoken kinship, a love for craftsmanship and respect for detail. In this global dialogue, Melbourne's voice rings clear, confident, creative, and authentic. What makes Melbourne's rise remarkable is its humility. It never set out to conquer coffee. It simply loved it deeply enough to make it better. That sincerity resonates far beyond its shores. From Berlin to Brooklyn, cafe owners whisper the same phrase: "Let's do it like Melbourne." The city's influence isn't measured in exports or profit margins. It's measured in inspiration. Behind every perfect cup in Melbourne lies not just artistry, but enterprise, a quiet army of dreamers who turned passion into profession. Cafes here are more than coffee shops. They are stories, philosophies, and sometimes revolutions poured into a ceramic cup. The business of coffee in Melbourne thrives not because of big chains, but because of small ideas done brilliantly. Every suburb seems to have its own legend: a cafe that started with a single espresso machine and became a local institution through sheer dedication and community spirit. The rise of independent roasters marks a defining chapter in this entrepreneurial journey. Names that began in humble warehouses now export beans to cafes around the world. Their success isn't built on marketing tricks, but on authenticity. Farmers paid fairly, beans roasted to highlight character rather than conceal flaws. It's business driven by ethics as much as economics. Melbourne's roasters have created a blueprint for sustainable commerce, where transparency and quality drive value. This balance between artistry and accountability has become the city's signature rhythm. For young entrepreneurs, coffee is no longer just a beverage, it's an ecosystem. They design minimalist cafes that double as creative spaces, fusing gastronomy, art, and design. Others innovate with mobile cafes, subscription models, or digital roasting platforms that bring Melbourne's brews to global audiences. Startups collaborate with farmers directly, leveraging technology to trace beans from crop to cup. It's a world where passion meets precision, and where innovation feels as natural as the aroma of freshly ground coffee drifting through the laneways each morning. In this thriving landscape, competition doesn't breed hostility, it fuels creativity. Baristas visit rival cafes not to spy, but to celebrate what's next. It's a culture built on collaboration and pride, a collective movement where every player understands that Melbourne's coffee identity belongs to everyone. The city's business brew, much like its coffee, is bold, balanced, and beautifully crafted, proof that when creativity and commerce share a table, the result is nothing short of extraordinary. As the final drop hits the cup, Melbourne stands tall, a city that turned coffee into connection, art into identity, and routine into ritual. Its cafes are more than spaces. They're chapters of a living story still being written with every pour and every shared smile. The next time you taste that perfect blend, remember, it began here, in the heart of a city that dared to brew culture itself.